Michael Miller became Charleston County's Register of Deeds in January, and now he wants the public to know what the office is all about. I sat down one-on-one with Michael for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores. And of course, subscribe to my YouTube channel. And Tuesday, listen to this interview again on iHeartRadio. Michael Miller, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yes, sir.
Back in the Register of Deeds office.
As a matter of fact, you are the Register of Deeds. You said this on Twitter. You're a mentor, a community advocate, that is, volunteer, and a former Charleston County School District trustee. Who else is Michael Miller these days?
Michael Miller has a new title since November 6th. Sworn in on January 2nd, so I'm officially now former Charleston County School Board trustee and now the Register of Deeds of Charleston County.
What is the biggest difference between January now in your mind when you think of this job?
Time. Time gives you an interesting perspective. It allows you to put things in its proper context. Last time you were here in the office, I was extremely new. I'm still new, still in my transition phase, but I'm in a much better place and space today than I was when you interviewed me 4 months ago.
How do you put this office into context right now?
Quintin, I think it comes into a lot of different ways. Most people who know about this office know this office to be the place where you come to have your deed and your mortgage recorded and indexed. We are in our historic room in the office today on purpose. I wanted you to interview me in this space because this is the office, this is the space in our office that house some of the oldest documents in the state, arguably in a tri-state, and some might even argue this far as Boston. We have documents in front of us now. That document is dated in 1709, 1787. And so this office, more importantly, more than just deeds and mortgages and miscellaneous, this office records all property transactions in Charleston County as far back as those properties date.
As a matter of fact, you just said this one recently, on Twitter that is, in the preservation room, we store the office's oldest and most precious documents, as well as preserve and store documents that are in poor condition. What documents are near and dear to your heart right now?
Well, there's none that's more than the other. If you were to purchase a home today or your second home today, that deed is no more important than the ones that we have in front of us. They're all equally important. They all require a certain level of attention. But there are some documents that date back pre the independence of this country. Those documents are not just precious to Michael Miller or not just precious to the city, but they're precious to the state and to this country. And so, as you can see, some of the documents in front of us are encapsulated, and so they're there so they can protect the documents, so we can preserve them, not just for our use or for tomorrow's use, for a historical context.
Historical context. And obviously, when you talk about protecting, you obviously use these particular plaques here.
We do. These documents are so precious that, and they're so old and so valuable that when we do use and we do handle these documents, there's an old term, use kit gloves. We use gloves so the oil from your skin doesn't go off onto the document. These documents date back pre-1800s, and they require a certain level of specificity and attention, and we do that.
What attention are you giving to most of these documents now?
Well, Quintin, the attention today and now is, one, identifying, not for us, but to the public, what we have in our possession, number one. Number two is being able to identify funding resources that can help this office preserve and digitize every one of these documents, not just for me and for you, but in 100 years and in 200 years. So those who come and they want to look up the land and the property that ties them or their family to a tract of land, these documents do that. And if we don't preserve these documents, if we don't use all that we have at our disposal to do that, I, as a registered deed of Charleston County, would not be doing my due diligence, and I would not be serving and fulfilling the obligation that I took and I made on the day I got sworn in.
What are those funding resources that you want right now?
Well, Quintin, the budget was just passed by the county. Unfortunately, I was not able to put anything in that budget. The budget for this office was done prior to me being sworn in. Not elected, but prior to me being sworn in. The last time you were here, you asked me about the size of my budget. It's about $2.1 million. There's nothing in that budget. Again, I did not present that budget. I had nothing to do with that budget, but there was nothing in that budget that went to county council that talked about the preservation of these documents. And so since that's already taken place, county council already voted. We're in the first day of July. This next year, I can't touch that money. That money's already been allocated. So what I'm doing now is reaching out to every county council member, every city council member, also setting up meetings with our elected officials in Columbia. I've also reached out to Tim Scott, Lindsey Graham, Jim Clyburn, and Joe Cunningham, informing them of what we have here and the fact that this office, this county, and this state desperately needs the funds and resources that they may know of to preserve these documents.
What do they know of when it comes to these funds?
Well, of course, at the state level, they have the budget at the state. The state could allocate money for the preservation of not just the documents in my office, but the documents across the 46 counties in South Carolina. At the national level, there are grants and opportunities that they may know of at the federal level that money may be allocated to do preservation of documents, preservation of historic documents, archives, things of that nature. I just want to make sure that I'm turning over every single stone possible to generate and find resources available to preserve these documents.
So now that you can't really touch that money, what else are you doing besides reaching out to these elected officials?
Well, that's the main point, because to be honest with you, the budget, if I set my own budget, it'd be simple. It'd be a no-brainer. Okay. I could just find out exactly how much money it would cost to do everything I need done, and I would just write it into my budget. Well, it doesn't work that way. This is government. And in government, things must be budgeted. Everyone who's elected has a fiduciary responsibility. So it's incumbent upon me to make sure that folks at City Council, if there's any resources that can slide this way, we would appreciate it. If the county, maybe county council members don't understand the importance of these documents, and some don't. That's why we have them come to this office. That's why I'm meeting with them. That's why I bring them in this particular room so they can see. Quintin, you notice this room was a little colder here than it is anywhere else in our building. Right. This is a controlled climate room. Why? Because these documents are fragile. And because they're fragile, they require a certain level of attention. And so I'm also, not only am I reaching out to Clyburn and Tim Scott and those folks and the legislative delegates of Columbia and the city council members and county council members, I'm also trying to acquire the use of a grant writer. Someone who could work specifically for this office and address the specific needs that this office has. My office has different needs than the county office, than the county treasurer's office, or the auditor's office, or the clerk of court, or the probate judge. And so I need to make sure that I'm doing all I can to address those needs and those concerns.
Now, how much would that cost for you as far as bringing a grant writer?
Well, of course, grant writers all have different prices, and so we're using procurement to help us. The procurement department for the county is helping us vet potential folks who have a particular skill set of grant writing, in hopes that we can bring somebody on board with a particular task and skill to make sure this is what we need. And grant writing didn't happen overnight. You don't write a grant today, you find out tomorrow. It's quite a lengthy process. I want to get started now. I need to get started sooner than later. So if the work that we do now with the grant writer, if it doesn't come to fruition until 18 months from now, that's fine. But if I wait 18 months from this point to get it, it might be too late for me under my tenure as registered deeds. I'm not guaranteed a second term. Only if the people find me worthy do I get a second term. So while I have this first 4 years, I'm going to do all within my power and my ability to do whatever I can.
Now, it might be a redundant question. How do you, 18 months from now, write this grant writer into your budget?
Easy. If you were the grant writer and you had a price for me, I would have a line item in my budget for, and the county has ways that you identify services that you need within your budget. I would try to find creative ways. The county has grant writers. I might just try to use a grant writer that the county already has, and may not have to use my own grant writer. But for now, I'm exploring any and all opportunities as it pertains to grant writing because it is necessarily needed.
Now, what other services does this office need now?
What other services do we need? I could use more staff. To be quite honest with you, this is the highest volume office in the state. I have the largest staff of any registered deeds office in 46 counties. And the reason why that is because Charleston, people love our city. And people are coming here in rapid mass succession. And every time somebody buys a home, where's their property recorded? Right down the hall. And it takes manpower or people capital to do that work. And so I need additional staff. But again, my budget is done, so I can't request more staff until this time next year. But that will definitely be in my budget.
Now, how does this manpower keep up with the growth of Charleston?
Well, of course, every time somebody comes in with work to be done, we need to have the faculty and the staff to be able to accomplish and do the work in a timely manner. And so just like anything, if you were doing 5 videos a day, you might need more than one person, right? It's the same concept, my friend. Same concept.
Let me go back.
I cannot do more with less.
Okay.
I know some people tend to think, well, you can do more with less. But Quintin, I can't put $50 worth of gas in my car with $20 and expect to travel the same distance if I had $50 worth of gas. I cannot. We do what we can with what we have. But again, my staff is highly efficient. They do a wonderful job, but nobody wants to be overworked. And so I need to make sure that as the volume of work comes in this office, that I have the manpower and the staff to accommodate that as well.
And you also said this on Twitter. You said this quote, as ROD, my goals are improving public awareness of property ownership and history. What else do you want to keep the public aware of right now with this office?
Well, I think those are the 2 main things. If you are a property owner or connected to property in Charleston County, I believe you need to know about this office. You need to know where you can go to get information about your property. And if you're not a landowner in 4 years, if you're a landowner in 4 years and you still don't know about this office, I feel that I failed at my job as a registrar of deeds, because one of the things I ran on was bringing visibility and light to this office. Not only that, but also to educate people about this office and what it can do. And that's why we're here in this historical room today.
Let me go to Brian Hick's article. Well, actually, it's a column for the Post and Courier.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I think you said this quote, this isn't just our history, it's the country's.
That's right.
What do you want history to write about your time as registered deeds here?
Well, we already know I made history when I won this office. And I can say I made history. I was just a recipient of some people who believe I do a good job. So being the first to do anything is always heartwarming, right? But that's not where it stops. That's the beginning. Being the first that's A in the alphabet. B now is to do a great job, to make sure everybody who's a land and property owner knows about this office. 2, third thing, educating everyone, you included, from Quintin's Close-Up, who interviews everybody in town. You need to know about the historical pressure and the historical relevance of this office and these deeds and the property that we have here. It's not just about Michael Miller. This is much larger than Michael Miller. This is about the land in this town. These documents tell a story. It tells the story of the landowner. That story needs to be told and continue to be told when you and I are dead and gone, my friend, and when our children and our grandchildren are here. The story must be recorded. It is my responsibility to protect and record these documents, to make sure that no matter if it's 4 years from now or 400 years from now, I've left my mark in this office, and that's what I want to try to do.
Okay, tell me about the historic pressure.
Well, the historical pressure is simple. Sitting before us right now, Quintin, that date says what? You can read. That was that
1709.
1709. You see how this paper looks a little funny, right? You know why that looks funny? Because this is not paper, my friend. This document was written on animal skin. So when you talk about history, this is the history that we need to know. This seal is the original Great Seal of the Carolinas. Right? So this is more than just recording the history. It's about learning from it and learning with it and growing with it. And that's what I've come to know about this office, because I'll be quite frankly with you, Quintin. I did not know that this office possessed these documents when I ran. I did not know that. But now that I do know that, it's my responsibility to protect it and to preserve it and to digitize it. So whether or not you want to see it physically and touch it, if it's one of our older documents, I want you to use the gloves, that is, my friend. But if not this way, on the screen, so we can scan it and use it. And these documents, you just can't use a regular scanner to do this. So to my left is a scanner that we have in this office, and there's only 3 of them on the East Coast. Us, the Library of Congress, and the University of Florida. So this is very delicate work. The gentleman who works in this office, Mr. Bob McIntyre, who's been with the county and the registered deed office for over 20 years, he is the gatekeeper of this room. And I want to say how thankful I am for Bob for doing the work that he's been doing for so long. And there's a lot of stuff that Bob can do, but one thing he cannot do with these documents is deacidify the document. He can encapsulate it, but he can't deacidify it. So there's companies around the country that do this type of work, and it costs money to do that.
Sure.
And so that's why I've been reaching out to all those folks we mentioned earlier to see if I can generate the funds to do what needs to be done.
Michael Miller, thank you so much for your time, and welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups again.
Oh, Quintin, I'm sure, let me see. So you came in January. Now this is July. So I'll see you again in November. And hopefully in November I have better news for you as far as where we are with our documents. But I will tell everybody who watches your interviews that if you've never had a chance to come in this room or come in this space to see these documents, they're well worth your time to do so. These documents date back to the early 1700s, when King George and King Charles were granting land. And so it's Charleston's treasure chest that I think most people never knew Charleston really had.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Quintin.
Thank you.